Welcome to TEDxGatewaySalon on public service, presented to you by the JSW Group and the Arun Bongirwar Foundation. Now, 4 months before India celebrated independence and the transfer of power from the British back in 1947, the country's first Home Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, spoke to the first batch of the Indian administrative officers in Delhi. He was preparing them for the colossal job that lay ahead of them. He spoke to them about the vision that he had for the civil service in a newly created independent India, laying the foundation for good governance or Swarajya. He talked about dignity, integrity, and incorruptibility with which he hoped they would serve the new country. Patel said, and I quote, he said, "Your predecessors were brought up in traditions which kept them aloof from the common people. But it will be your duty to treat the common man as your own." He was considered the patron of the Indian civil services. And some stories say he considered the civil services the steel frame on which the country would be built. And it really has been. Now consider India. It's a vast and complex democracy. It has been built on that steel frame. 1.3 billion citizens that live across the country from forests to mountains to valleys to deserts. And every single citizen is entitled to education and healthcare, rations, water, roads, and safety. We also have to look after the forests, our rivers, our wildlife, our natural resources, and of course, our people. The steel frame that makes all of these services accessible from the length and breadth of this country is the civil service. But it's not just a service. It's also innovation. In a country that is diverse in language, in people, in food habits, in terrain, in culture, it's up to the men and women of the civil service to constantly innovate and come up with new solutions to match the time and the problem at hand. So today I bring you stories of outstanding innovation. Some brilliant work been done by civil servants who've gone above and beyond the brief of the job. And it's due to the efforts of civil servants like this that you see ripple effects in society that a lot of times you and I don't really notice. But it's there. In 2019, over 8 lakh people appeared for the civil service examination across the country. 829 candidates were finally selected. So these people are not just the cream of the crop, brilliant men and women, but they're also people who dedicate their entire lives to public service. And if we consider the year gone by, when our country was dealing with COVID, it was these officers who dealt with the problem on the ground. They had to modify their programs to deliver healthcare, ration, employment to those who were affected. And even though they were operating in routine and predictable regulated systems, they had to deploy some quick thinking, some instant creativity to counter the destruction on the ground. Today, as our nation battles with the pandemic, public servants, volunteers, and national service, these are the unsung heroes who are working tirelessly in the system on the ground to keep you and me safe. The stories we bring you today, quite frankly, for me, have been astounding. When I heard these officers speak, I realized the commitment it takes to do a job that's normally considered paper pushing or babugiri by many of us who are not familiar with what it is like to work in some of the most remote parts of this country with some of her most poorest citizens. Our first speaker today is a cabinet minister in the state of Maharashtra, the youngest the state has ever had. Carrying the legacy of his grandfather, Balasaheb Thackeray, who founded the Shiv Sena, and his father, Uddhav Thackeray, who's the current chief minister, Aaditya Thackeray has big shoes to fill. A fact that's not quite lost on him as he attempts to do the work of the tourism and environment minister and the guardian minister of Mumbai's suburban districts. He realizes that environment is perhaps a very important ministry today with long-term impact on climate change. He also realizes that managing The suburbs of Mumbai, which is growing constantly and in need of infrastructure, is also a difficult job. But while everyone is watching his move and every move is being scrutinized, it hasn't stopped him from making some very bold moves in his first year on the job. Our first speaker, Aaditya Thackeray.
India is said to be a land of traditions. While many have existed for years uncounted, there is a tradition strong in its very nature and thus keeping our country stable, our public administration, the IAS, the IPS and the state civil services. Governments come and go. Politics is an ongoing, ever-changing process. Ideologies make and break many things, but what has kept a certain civility and a sense of direction that is constant are our officers. With a strong sense of political neutrality, yet complete obedience to protocol, most of our officers have held on to a sense of moral well-being of our constitution and our daily administration. Be it the far-flung areas of the country or the more glamour towns where popularity is quicker, officers have played enablers to a slow and steady process called progress. These are the unsung heroes that we can't see until we have a reason to complain about one of them. Even then, we don't see them as the reason behind why most things function smoothly. Issues ranging from electricity and water supply to your house, to your child's education, to traffic regulations, going unnoticed is a very normal day for us, but a great working day for most of our officers. For most of them, they prefer to ensure smooth running of things as they could without being noticed, and then truly, no news is good news for them. And then there are those who we cherish as heroes, albeit only when we know them. Most go unnoticed even as they step into waist-high waters to relieve an area of flooding, or stand firm in their district to ensure no lives are lost during a storm or an earthquake when they could have easily evacuated to safer grounds. I can mention a few stories here. An additional municipal commissioner poured his heart and soul into the COVID battle when his jurisdiction of Ward G South was at its peak, topping national numbers. His family awaited his little one. His parents weren't doing the very best of their health. And this man stood firm, helping hundreds of people fight the COVID battle every single day for day in and day out for the last 8 or 9 months. A district collector led her district like a true captain and did not leave her district herself when asked to by seniors while evacuating others in situations, or rather a situation so unique that was never seen before. The cyclone of Nisarg and the COVID battle of August 2020. And then there are those who want to make the difference, redefine benchmarks, assist governments to make things better than they already are. A principal secretary, for example, revamped a policy that will not just give a massive relief to the hotel industry, but her policy actually redefines the entire hospitality sector in Maharashtra. In an effort that brought this change, 70 licenses were brought down to only 10. 70 application forms were brought down to just 8, and NOCs were reduced by almost 80%. That is the sort of work we are rewarding in public life and public service when we look at a better country going forward. We now rank in the top few administrations in the world when we look at ease of doing business for the hospitality sector. And then there's a story of a former municipal commissioner on whose insistence and persistence and passion we brought down the daily waste collection of Mumbai city from 10,000 metric tons a day. 10,000 metric tons a day is almost equal to 100 armored vehicles. From 10,000 metric tons a day to 6,000 metric tons a day only by pushing little habits of waste segregation in bulk generators. Likewise, there are many more officers of the IPS and their colleagues who stand firm to protect the interests of the state in the face of every crisis, be it a terrorist attack, a fire, or a protest, or even a natural calamity like an earthquake or a storm. What we as normal people might give up on or run away from, terming it as a disaster or a crisis, they run towards for us. That is the fabric of our public administration. I've mentioned only a few stories here. There are tons like these who ensure the smooth functioning of the state, redefining benchmarks, and more so, the vision of various governments, political parties to be implemented in a polished way that suits our constitution. The ever-changing nature of Indian politics always needs a sense of stability and continuity. That comes from the public administration. Let us recognize these everyday heroes in our lives, applaud them for their selfless acts of nation building. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. You know, when you talk about the officers you work with, it's going to become the envy of every CEO in the country. Everyone would love to have a team like that. You better hold on to them. You know, I've lived in Mumbai for 16 years. I love this city, everything about it, the people, the bustle, the crowds. But one thing I would never associate this city with is wide open public spaces. Similarly, Sharat Ughare, our next speaker, grew up in a small town in Maharashtra called Dhule. And the fondest memories he has of his childhood were the open spaces in which he played in his hometown. As a young man in charge of old problems in the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai, Sharat Ughare wanted to do the impossible. He wanted to clean up Mumbai's public spaces. Here is his story.
I want to take you on a journey. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of these cities? New York, Paris, London, Delhi, Mumbai. Most of us will have one common answer: good public spaces. After all, great cities are known for the great public spaces they have. I was born and brought up in a small town Dhule in Maharashtra with a mere population of 300,000. My town had many beautiful public places where we could meet, greet, and just get around. These spaces give any city its life and meaning. In 2005, I came to Mumbai, the city of dreams, and joined the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, one of the largest civic organizations in the world. The city is divided in 24 wards with a population of 300,000 to 1 million people, similar to a district in India. The corporation has 100,000 employees serving almost 20 million people of Mumbai. Can you imagine what it takes to effectively maintain a city so large and wide? I became the Assistant Municipal Commissioner in 2012, and I oversee all civic services and overall development of the ward. During the site visits with the staff and citizens, I realized that there are many good public spaces in our area. However, only few are usable. Some of the public spaces did not have any space for the public. They were congested, misused, abandoned, and long forgotten. The reasons may have been many. It could be improper planning, haphazard development, and the perceived opportunity for the encroachers to occupy the high cost area. I felt that we should do something to change this, and reminded me of my hometown and childhood. Hence, we initiated revival of public spaces in the ward. We tried to transform many such public spaces. Let me show you some of them. One of my fondest memories is of Bandra railway station, a grade 1 heritage landmark recognized by UNESCO. Every day, several thousand people and vehicles use this busiest station area. There were a lot of encroachment around the station, posing hardship to the commuters. Due to lack of space, it had become a huge bottleneck. The space was lost forever. This area badly needed to be decongested and revived, and hence we started working on it. Needless to say, there was a huge resistance and the developments were challenged by the occupants in the court. However, we not only won the case in the Honorable Supreme Court of India, but also got a landmark judgment against encroachments. We cleared the bottleneck and also acquired the nearby space to create a pedestrian area, dedicated lanes for the vehicles. With these efforts, the lost glory of a heritage landmark is being restored. One of the biggest challenges for my team was to transform an urban dump into a green place of ecological importance. Mumbai has numerous seashore. One such place is Mahim Causeway, where the Mithi River enters the Arabian Sea. This area with mangroves at the heart of the city had become a huge dumping ground over the years. We decided to reclaim this place. The challenges were to mobilize huge resources and involvement of many state agencies. Initially, everyone was skeptical of our efforts. However, we continued. We removed hundreds of trucks of debris and leveled the area using soil of nearby construction sites. We reclaimed few acres of land and planted hundreds of mangroves and the associated trees with the help of our garden department and mangrove cell of Maharashtra government. We did not just have a win-win for us and citizens, but also a win for nature. However, we were truly tested when we unmasked a decongested place for everyone. Fashion Street on Linking Road, Bandra is one of the most sought after place for street shopping. One day, my colleague took me to this congested place along the footpath full of stalls and sneaked me into a beautiful garden just behind the stalls, not known to many citizens. It was a surprise to see such an important place being wasted. The challenges were the shifting of stalls, huge resistance, and huge rehabilitation cost. We had to think of a win-win situation. Hence, we established a dialogue with the stall owners and convinced them to change their stall dimensions. We rearranged the stalls in same place and nearby area. With this unique intervention, roads and footpaths got more breathing space. Millions of rupees saved. Importantly, the beautiful garden is now visible and accessible to the citizens. A win-win for everyone. Converting an abandoned place into a community space is the best example of collective efforts of all stakeholders. A group of citizens and people's representative took me to an isolated and abandoned place, prone to antisocial activities. The iconic Mount Mary Church was just few meters away from this place. The community wanted us to make this place usable and multi-purpose. The challenge was a difficult topography and huge cost involved. We involved urban planners in planning as well as execution to deal with this topographical issue and suggest low-cost solutions. And the transformation began. We regained an area of 20,000 square feet and turned it into a vibrant community place. This has become a new landmark in the neighborhood, allows artist performances and cultural gatherings for all. We have had so many learnings in the past 5 years of reclaiming public spaces for citizens. Here are few of them. Make public spaces usable and not just ornamental. Use local resources, out-of-box strategy to save time, efforts, and funds. Swift execution is key to success. Bring the stakeholders together in planning as well as execution. Create a win-win situation for all stakeholders, including nature. I imagine that one day the city of dreams, Apli Mumbai, we'll have many more beautiful and world-class public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharatji, not just for sharing that beautiful story, but also for cleaning up our public spaces. And as he highlighted in his talk, Sharatji and his team have done some absolutely remarkable work in restoring the ecological balance in various areas of Mumbai. Many abandoned areas have come to life as community spaces have now become part of his project. In the last 1 year, living through a pandemic year has caused many of us to maybe stop and think about the basic things again, the details of our lives, our health, what we eat, where we buy our vegetables from, what that means for the health of our families. We've had the luxury of time and safety to think about those things, to think about nutrition and to think about our children. But unfortunately, for many, many people in our country, that's still a luxury that's only for the well-to-do. Our next speaker used her position as a livelihood officer in rural Maharashtra to change the food habits of the people she was looking after and to cure health problems. It sounds almost like a miracle. But the beauty of her idea lies in its absolute simplicity. Our next speaker, Ms. R. Vimla, is a story of innovation that would make anyone in the private sector sit up and take notice. Welcome, Ms. Vimla.
I have been fortunate to be part of an organization which represents 5 million women. They are part of the 500,000 self-help groups created by the Maharashtra State Rural Livelihoods Mission. A self-help group is a community institution of 10 to 12 women. They are made to include the poorest and the most vulnerable women who are then made financially independent through sustainable livelihoods. Popularly known as Mahila Bachat Gat, the first thought which comes to our mind about them is that they make masala, papad and pickles. Agreed, they do that. And why not? Imagine how dull and boring our life and our food would be without these spices. But is food all about taste, calories, and filling our stomachs? Or something beyond that? I'm sure you all will agree. It has to be about nutrition, health, and well-being. On looking closely, I found that women earned money from 3 or 4 sources like agriculture or animal husbandry, but most of their income was spent on doctors and medicines. Secondly, despite all they were growing or rearing, they were still malnourished and unhealthy. Now, there is certainly no point in earning a livelihood if most of your income is drained in taking care of your health. Malnutrition and anemia are the 2 biggest problems faced by most rural communities. When we discuss malnutrition, our focus is primarily on children. But what we forget is that a malnourished mother gives way to a malnourished family. A mother is the backbone of the family, and one must have a strong backbone to keep the body functioning. We all know that a nutritious meal must include carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. 50% of our diet should comprise of fruits and vegetables. But rural women are not aware of this. They may cultivate their grains or get them from government fair price shops, but what about fruits and vegetables which are expensive? On my visit to Andhra Pradesh, I had seen women getting fruits and vegetables easily from Nutri Gardens. Learning from that idea, we developed our own model. Now, this may sound very simple and easily doable, but it needs a lot of effort, time, plus an investment of 2,000 rupees on seeds and initial preparation. This idea had to be pushed. We are all influenced by our friends and peers, so we chose 15 women from villages to be our ambassadors and demonstrate the worthiness of our ideas. They were then trained and they gave the message of making Nutri Gardens to their own community. We began in 300 villages in 9 blocks of 6 districts, which included the tribal district of Palghar, dry areas like Jalna, farmer suicide affected areas like Yavatmal. Seeing is believing, so we made demonstration models for women to see. We taught them how to develop and maintain Nutri gardens by working in groups. They learned to make a layout which included 14 types of green and leafy vegetables, medicinal plants, tubers, spices, and fruits planted in concentric circles along with pathways, plus a compost pit for manure. On seeing that they could get more than 3 cycles of vegetables and fruits in a year by investing just 2,000 rupees, many more women joined. We taught them to customize their Nutri gardens according to their needs. Soap-free wastewater from the kitchen and the bathrooms was used to water the plants. As for shortage of funds, a loan amount of 2,000 rupees was made easily available through self-help groups. Government departments, including health, women and child welfare, tribal development, village panchayats, found value in this project. Impressed by the outcomes, MG Narega, Government of India's flagship program, added Nutri gardens as permissible work under their scheme. It was a win-win situation for the government and the community. Midway through the program, we evaluated it and found that residue-free, organic, nutritious fruits and vegetables were easily available in villages. Diet was diversified to include all components. Women and their families became healthy. Cases of anemia reduced by over 50% as hemoglobin levels went up. This meant that the families spent less on doctors and medicines and became regular in school and at work. Government of India accepted this model and it grew from a pilot to 266 blocks with an additional allocation of funds to create a larger impact. 1,100 trainers took this model to 10,000 villages, 260,000 families, more than 1 million people benefited from it. These included pregnant women, lactating mothers, and children from the age of 0 to 6. In the last 4 years, vegetables and fruits cultivated from Nutri gardens across all the 266 blocks has yielded revenue worth 900 million rupees with savings of 600 million rupees since they did not have to buy their fruits or vegetables. This simple initiative is now a way of life which did not stop even during the pandemic as women sold vegetables locally at affordable prices during the lockdown. We've boosted it further through our 21-day campaign in June 2020. Against a target of 30,000, more than 95,000 Nutri gardens were developed by women and their families with no funding from the government but just through motivation. This model has become sustainable and is being followed in many other states of the country.
नाही बाजारातलं इथलं घरचंच सगळं आपल्या घरचंच बी आपल्या घरचंच ते कारलं बी ती वांगे बी ती कोया लावून आंब्याची झाडं बी पपईचे बी बाजारातली पपई आणून केली त्याचं बी इथंच ही केले घरच्या घरी लावल्याचा काय सोन लेक नातवण ते सगळे मोहरी बसून खाऊ घालणार त्याला म्या बाजारातलं मला परवडतच नाही.
Women are now focusing on Nutri livelihoods and are adding several health products like ragi, jawar, bajra, and noodles fortified with moringa powder, which is propagated even by the Honorable Prime Minister of our country. It also led to a lot of innovative ideas. Aparna Tai from Solapur is one among the thousands who got a rich harvest of beetroot, made beetroot barfis, and sold them among her friends. Groups from remote villages of Gadchiroli have earned lakhs by selling products of blackberry and custard apples. This model is the simplest way of ensuring nutrition and taking care of one's health, especially for women who usually neglect themselves. Extra income from the sale of fruits and vegetables made it more appealing. Just a nudge from us enabled a great change and created a new way of life. And all this through simple messages sung by women. सुनो सखी काम की बात मैं बताने आई सेहत का खजाना तुझको मैं देने आई सुनो सखी काम की बात मैं बताने आई पोषण वाटिका का महत्व समझाने आई सुनो सखी तेरे वाटिका में 14 सब्जियां उगाना, अच्छी सेहत का यही है खजाना। खजाने के राज मैं तुझको बताने आई, सेहत का खजाना तुझको मैं देने आई। सुनो सखी, घर में सबकी सेहत ठीक हो, बुजुर्ग बच्चे और परिवार चुस्त हो, खाने में सब्जियों का राज मैं बताने आई, पोषण वाटिका का महत्व समझाने आई। सुनो सखी, काम की बात मैं बताने आई, पोषण वाटिका का महत्व समझाने आई। सुनो सखी। Communities of women have proved that if we are creative and resourceful, if we meet challenges with determination and commitment, making a change is possible. I salute all those women who made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimla ji. I'd never get tired of hearing that song. And thank you for not just sharing your story, but also highlighting the importance and the miracle that nutrition can bring to the people of this country. Focusing on our next speaker, what do you do when your adversary is a teenager with a gun? How do you solve the problem of children taking up violence? Mr. Ankush Shinde, Commissioner of Police in Solapur City, was faced with the very same problem when he was responsible for the area of Gadchiroli. And he decided to fight the problem of violence by treating it with multiple doses of rehabilitation, opportunity, and positivity. He changed the lives of thousands. Introducing Mr. Ankush Shinde.
As a police officer, I work in Maharashtra Police for 30 years. I have seen many situations wherein police has been instrumental for betterment of citizens. But the story I am going to tell you is about parents losing their children, thousands of tribal lives being lost, children brainwashed and turned to extremism, and those born out of it are known as left-wing extremists, Maoist or Naxal. I am talking about how we were able to work with tribals and help them overcome this difficult situation. Mangru Sukumu Bogami lived close to Bhamragad, a small tribal hamlet on the border of Gadchiroli and Chhattisgarh. As a child, he wanted to go to school but could not due to extreme poverty and no access to financial support. While growing up, a gang of green-clothed men with arms used to visit his village. These were the men in front of whom even the rich and powerful would bow down. Seeing that power, Mangru got influence. At the age of 13, Mangru joined that group and he was trained by the extremists to carry out attack against the government establishment. Since then, he has been responsible for killing 51 policemen. Another story is of Dolesh Madhyatram. As a child, he was forced to commit a crime by killing 4 policemen at Tadgaon tea stall using arm. Dolesh joined the extremist group, killing 19 tribals. He also forced youngsters from his village to join the group. These two stories are representative of extremists luring, brainwashing, forcing to commit crime and putting the children's life in danger. Having been a Naxal affected area since 1984, the tribals in Gondia and Gadchiroli for the last 36 years have been kept under constant fear by these extremists. Fear of death, fear of surveillance, fear of contacting government machinery, and even fear of going out of village for few days. To reduce the children's belief in democracy, they push the teachers to teach school children about their ideology, thereby influencing the young minds. They target the disillusioned and misinformed youngsters who are uneducated, unemployed, or with financial and family problems. Carry out their agenda. Few in the tribal society are sympathetic towards extremists, and through them they connect with the local to participate in festival, misrepresenting the reality and cleverly putting up stories through songs and dance in such a way that it will look like government is exploiting their culture and wealth, creating mistrust amongst the tribals. To enforce their agenda, they create an atmosphere of fear, power in villages by killing government officials, security personnel, destroying government property, putting up banners, and by celebrating death of extremists who carried out these attacks. They are known for killing the tribals to keep their perception of being dangerous amongst the villagers alive. All these acts create an impression that they are more powerful and influential than the government. The tribals were made to suffer educationally, physically, mentally, psychologically, socially, and economically. Over 700 tribals were killed, many of them were injured and handicapped for life. School buildings were abandoned, roads, bridges, cell towers were destroyed and blasted by landmines. Children were brainwashed and youths were made to follow them blindly or leave the area, ruining families, destroying social fabric and societal peace. Constant attempts were made to keep tribals in the dark about the happenings in the world, and any chance of development was met with resistance and violence. All this was happening in the name of people's revolution. But this revolution, which did not believe in democracy, instead they say that political power flows through the barrel of a gun. After taking charge of Gadchiroli range in June 2017, I visited many tribal areas, studied the situation closely on the ground, and discussed with officers from all levels. We collectively decided to take an approach where we could connect with the tribals to bring the police closer to that community and also bring into focus their sufferings in order to alleviate them. To achieve that, we decided to act on massive scale and make a positive impact. Police officers visited tribal houses to understand, enlist, and devise suitable solutions to the problems of families like land, health issues, lack of education, unemployment amongst youth and adults, addiction to liquor, and other family disputes. We work with them to devise suitable solutions for all these problems. It touched their hearts. We visited the schools and involved the children in various activities like general knowledge quizzes, essay competitions, and interacted with them. This elevated fear and increased their confidence and trust in the administration. Camps were arranged at remote tribal villages with doctors arriving from cities nearby to help treat thousands of women and farmers. We worked with Yashwantrao Chavan Maharashtra Open University and started open university centers at 7 remotest police posts across the districts. For the first time in years, 1253 tribal adults, boys, girls got an opportunity to be a part of an education system and to study achieve their dreams. We arranged for employment camps in association with corporates and industries. Over 1,000 tribal youths gain employment. We help youngsters participate in sports competition across the district and then the state. Hundreds of tribal athletes even participated in big league competition like the prestigious Mumbai Marathon and selection trial for the Puneri Fulton Pro Kabaddi League. We also help them with training for competitive examination to be able to work as a teacher, police officer, public servant, and more. Tribal culture dance competition of Rela was undertaken throughout the district involving 2,75,000 tribals. All this brought us in close contact with 500,000 tribals, These activities and efforts created trust, built confidence, reduced fear among them. This resulted in tremendous support and created a positive impact on all levels. Whenever there was a violent act committed, the tribals would denounce such acts and respond with peaceful rallies to protest against the action by observing past and disengaging with these extremists. This was happening for the first time on such a scale. Our efforts as well as tribal denouncing violent acts created a huge buzz in newspaper and social media. It changed the perception about police dramatically and exponentially, thus making tribal willing to bring information about these people to us. This information helped to create operations by the police, which led to 40 surrenders, including Mangru, 59 arrests, and 70 dying in the exchange of fire, including Dolesh Madhyatram. Now, tribals who were earlier denied opening of police posts in their villages came with the request. For the last 36 years, the tribals of South Gadachurali who bore the brunt of all this violence were finally freed. Our efforts have led so much change, but this is just the beginning of an end to violence in Gadachurali and Gondia. We achieved to bring a change in the mindset of tribals. The bond between government administration and tribal was built over time. These communities are continuing to develop and grow, and new possibilities are now opening to them. Lives of tribal women, youth, sportsmen, and school children are now progressing. With the fear reduced from their minds and lives, they now have the chance to reach greater potentials, and I hope someday tribals from this district would positively contribute to the nation. Thank you.
Well, the best part about Mr. Shinde's story is that it can be picked up and replicated as a formula in other parts of the country where there's violence or conflict. And it really could be a game changer. The story of our next speaker is a story that will make you smile. Mr. Barood grew up in a part of the state where most people were below poverty line. He overcame his challenges to become a doctor. He gave up his practice to enter civil service and serve the people of his region. He now looks after an area of the state where there are many tribal people who live below the poverty line. And as a doctor, he knew that treatment and healthcare is one thing, but when he went back to these neighborhoods, he realized that basic water supply and sewage could make a world of difference. This is a story of how a man went back to his roots to save lives.
I want you to close your eyes and imagine the situation where you are living with your family in a small house. There is not enough space for everyone, and in front of which there is a gutter where wastewater is flowing. Now every day you wake up and sense that foul smell of wastewater. You see your kids are playing near that area with their hands and legs covered by dirty water, due to which many times they fall victim of diseases. And you feel helpless that you can't do much about this situation. This is the true reality for many families living in urban slum and in majority of rural areas of our nation. While larger cities have a better way of managing the wastewater by a complex system of drainage lines and treating wastewater, in rural area it is not feasible both financially and technically. Today, I would like to share a story of a village Vadala of Solapur district. This village has a population of around 5,300 with 950 households. One day, the local sarpanch, along with a group of villagers, came to my office and told me that there are frequent scenes of fights because of wastewater
flowing through the open gutters, causing stagnation near many houses, and no one is ready to clean these gutters, causing mosquitoes, which in turn making many families fall sick. Many villagers are blaming me that I am incompetent in doing my work. So, what I can do? Please help us. He was feeling very dejected. While I was listening to Sarpanch, I could easily relate the frustration and helplessness felt by him. I remember my childhood days. In my small village, growing up in poverty was nothing new to us. Living in such surroundings with wastewater flowing in open was a common sight for us. And majority of health problems we faced are linked with poor management of wastewater. I remember during my childhood, every rainy season, I had episodes of diarrhea, vomiting, sometimes fever, which made me sick at least for 10 to 15 days in a season. At that time, I presume living close to open gutters, seeing it every day, the foul smell of wastewater and falling ill was our fate, and we did not know any better solution for that. We accepted it as a part of life and not even thought it as a problem. While Sarpanch was still waiting for my reply, I assured him, do not worry. I said, let me come there with my officers. We will inspect the village and will come with some solution. Before coming to Solapur, I was working as an assistant collector in Nanded district. There in one village named Temburni, local Sarpanch deals the same problem by using simple low-cost solution of soak pit. During my tenure in Nanded, I had gone to that village and studied the model carefully. We had replicated similar structures in my subdivision where I was working. I decided to implement similar model in Vadala village. Though I assured Sarpanch that it was not easy task. When I went to the village along with my officers, many members were not believing that this model will work. Some said closing the existing gutter will be stupidity. Some said we don't have problems with the gutter, we will use our funds for roads or other works. But when I explained to them that if everyone will build soak pits, all problems related with open gutter will go, your children will not fall ill, and most important, your children will not miss their school. When they heard about wellness of their kids, everyone agreed to give it a try. To combat the problem of water stagnation, we decided to make soak pit for each of the 950 households. After a month, Sarpanch came to me and said happily, thanks to building soak pits, all wastewater was now going underground, and for the first time, all villagers have seen a gutter-free and mosquito-free life. It was all possible due to small soak pit. Sometimes we call it as a magic pit. After that, we decided to implement the soak pit model in all the villages which have open drainage lines. So, let me show you how it works. It is a simple structure where we put cement concrete tank in a pit and then join the tank with a pipe which in turn draws water from the kitchen and bathroom of the house. In cement tank, there are 4 holes which allow wastewater to seep into surrounding soil. In the pit, there are layers of loose stones, bricks and sands which acts as a natural filter for water, and all organic dirt will be digested by microbes within the pit. So, all wastewater will go into the ground and help in recharge the groundwater table, and the above surface will remain clean and dry. Now, we needed to take this pilot to large scale. For scaling up any project, it requires 4 things: political will, public participation, availability of funds, and the willpower of administrator to make sure the idea actually comes in reality. So we started seeking support from the local elective body. Initially, many heated debates delayed the process. There were many doubts casted on the feasibility of the project, who and how project will be funded. What if it fails in between? Who will be held responsible? But through proper dialogue and discussion, we got all party support in the general body meeting. In the initial phase, our focus was of course on villages having most favorable condition. Soon enough, the soak pits were showing its impressive results, and local newspaper, media channel published them as Gatar Mukti villages. A small but powerful idea gained support, and many villages came forward to reciprocate the model. From one village with 950 households to 231 villages with 61,161 households in 1 year of time. We were now able to impact 240,000 citizens without any special funds from the government. In the entire process, we had done convergence of funds from existing schemes. The results were astonishing in improving the groundwater level in most of the rain shadow area of Solapur district. Due to 61,000 soak pits, total groundwater recharge per day, in a month and in a year 4,400 million liters, which approximately equal to water stored in a small dam like Rankala in Nandurbar. For construction of such a dam, you need to invest minimum 30 crore rupees. In addition, acquisition of 200 hectare land with the time and mechanism for its future maintenance. On the other side, for the soak pit model, just public participation and convergence of available funds are needed. The immediate benefits we got due to Gatar Mukt Village campaign, for the first time people saw neat and clean surrounding. No longer foul smell of wastewater, no more breeding ground for the mosquitoes, and in long term it impacted on improving overall health, money is saved on medical treatment, and most important, increase in the groundwater level. During this entire campaign of Gatar Mukt Village, I personally learned many things from the spirit of rural people. First thing I learned, if people come to know simple and smart ways to handle the problem, they accept it and they join hands together to improve their own living condition. Second, I learned the most complex of problems usually require simplest solutions, and as an administrator, we should strive to work with all stakeholders for finding the solution which will be beneficial for most. And at last, I learned as a public administrator, we should not force cheap solutions on poor people. Rather, I will say, poor people do not deserve to get poor solutions. They have every right to get simple but smart solutions. Thank you.
Do not cut down the forest with its tigers, and do not banish the tigers from its forest. The tiger perishes without the forest, and the forest perishes without its tigers. These are the age-old words from the Mahabharata. However, from the 1950s to the present, tigers in our country have gone down from 30,000 to barely 3,000. Today, nearly 10% of its total tiger population is in Chandrapur district alone. With the area being 50% of the forest cover, villages in Chandrapur are dependent on the forest resource for their living. With such close man-animal contact and infringement of animals' natural habitat, this area is not without danger. Last year, we witnessed 27 human deaths due to wildlife, the highest in any country. Are animals only the real enemy? No, it's because of the lack of understanding and coexistence, and that is what we have set out to change. My name is Guru Prasad. I am the Deputy Director for one of the many reserved forests in India called Tadoba. Since childhood, my travel across forests of Karnataka, across Bannerghatta region have fed my passion for wildlife and nature. I witnessed my first tiger in a zoo on one such journey. And one thing that took was that wildlife should not be in enclosures. They have the right to be free in what is really their home more than ours. Let me tell you something about Tadoba and the Tiger Reserve. Tadoba is a protected forest area spread across 130,000 hectare forest land exclusively for tiger conservation. One of the most beautiful bamboo forest regions in the whole of the central Indian landscape, and houses 115 tigers out of the entire 200 plus tigers of Chandrapur district. Till date, Tadoba is considered the best place for tiger sightings. Tadoba forests are not only the homes for these animals, but they're also the lifeline for more than 1.5 lakh people living in and around Tadoba region. They are dependent on the forest for direct and indirect benefits and collection of resources for daily needs. Thus, Both people and animals are dependent on the same resources for survival. People go to collect bamboo, moa, even medicinal herbs. Some even use the land for poaching wildlife. It is this infringement that has led to the conflict among man, animal, and environment. So what is the solution? To try and resolve this constant conflict, the core and buffer zones were introduced. The core zone is the land declared for having least amount of human interference, allowing animals to live freely in their natural habitat. But people from adjoining villages were still dependent on the resource of the zone for their daily needs. Due to this, specialized buffer zone was created with the objective to reduce dependency of the people on the forest and at the same time generate alternate livelihood for these local villages. Let me tell you how we help bring such a change. Ecotourism in buffer zone became a great source of income for local villagers. Last year, we went from 6 to 13 buffer tourism gates and exclusive 2-night safari gates welcoming tourists from across the world to Tadoba. This is the highest number in any park in the whole country, and all are solely managed by locals here at Tadoba. Within this 1 year, other activities like boating, kayaking, cycling, night log at stay, night machan stay, nature trail, etc. were all started by involving local youths. The locals even started homestay facilities for visiting tourists. We subsidized many households to help them promote ecotourism and encourage tourists to stay and enjoy the local culture. Due to these ecotourism activities in buffer zone, more than 1,000 local youths from 20 different villages are getting regular income. Prior to this, poaching, agriculture, and other forest land dependent activities were their only means of livelihood. Now, they themselves are the protectors of our forest. Apart from ecotourism, since last 2 years, Tadoba Forest Administration has facilitated the training, selection, and placement of local youths in various companies. Even the local women have the opportunity of generating income, thanks to the training provided to them in stitching, preparation of incense sticks, running camping sites, butterfly garden, and diorama. All of this has provided 170 women and over 200 youths with means of regular income, reducing the dependence on the forest land. However, living in such close proximity, encounters between human and animals are inevitable in the buffer villages. Crop damage, human injuries, and above all, human deaths by wild animals are the major challenge for the department to handle. With 1.5 lakh human population and nearly 20,000 animal population, a strength of mere 200 forest personnel was not sufficient. To quote an example, in 2018, we witnessed 5 deaths in 1 month from a single buffer village. They were all killed by a leopard, and one of those 5 was a 10-year-old boy. So we decided to involve local villages themselves to combat rising man-animal conflict. 200 local youths from 40 sensitive villages were selected and trained to understand and mitigate wildlife conflict in these villages. Known as primary response teams, these local youths are at the forefront in reducing these man-animal conflicts. Tadoba Foundation also offers them an honorarium for all their efforts. Thousands of subsidized LPG connections and solar fencings were also provided through village eco-development committees. These developments have built a great relationship between administration and local villages. They have witnessed cooperation, willingness to protect and exploit the forest resources, and a renewed sense of respect for animals and the wildlife of the forest land. Many are willing to share information about wildlife poaching, helping us to detect the cases better. And last year, with the help of primary response teams, nearly 200 hectares of forest land encroachment were made free for wildlife movement. We know forests are the limited natural resource. Every human being on this earth is directly or indirectly dependent on it. But that does not make us the sole stakeholders. The forest equally belongs to the animals and the wildlife that the land sustains. It is our duty and responsibility to conserve nature, but also help the local right holders sustain without further damage. It is our responsibility to ensure the continuity of this peaceful coexistence. I want to leave you with an image that depicts a world without this conflict between man and animal, a world where man's greed is not linked to the loss of environment, a world where we can build, live, and let live harmoniously. Thank you.
But we saved a special bonus for the very last end. Now, while there are obviously people in the civil service who are heroes in their own rights, there are other heroes, some on the big screen and some quietly in the background. Up next is one such hero, whose work, quiet as it has been amplifying the work of our heroes in the civil service. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ajay Devgan.
जब महाराष्ट्र के जंगल में कोई बच्चा बंदूक उठाकर पुलिस या निर्दोष आदिवासी को मारता है, माजी सटकते. I was happy to hear that DIG Police Ankush Shinde, who worked in Naxalite-affected Gadchiroli for 2 years, managed to stop the harmful practice of the local Naxalites recruiting child soldiers in that area. Singham ko ye acha laga. I also heard that Rajendra Bharut, collector of Nandarbar district, himself a tribal, worked with Sarpanch of Sholapur and eliminated mosquitoes and diarrhea from Sholapur rural areas. Mosquitoes and dirty water kill more people in India than gangsters. So Rajendra ji, aapko bhi Singham ka salam. In Mumbai, people encroach on common spaces. Because of this, the old and the young have no place to relax or play outdoors. I'm afraid no more love songs can be filmed in Mumbai if we lose our open spaces. But Singham is happy that Sharad Ugade from Mumbai Corporation cleared up the Bandra Church steps so that youngsters can enjoy some privacy in this beautiful part of Mumbai. Vimla ji worked with tribal mothers and ensured that they grow their nutritious food in the kitchen garden. Thus, malnutrition in the tribal areas of Thane and Dhanu was reduced. Congratulations to Vimla ji. As actors, we value excellence in public service because this keeps our roads efficient, brings power to our homes, and keeps our streets crime-free. This TED Talks provides inspiration to thousands of civil servants and government officials, encouraging them to give their best to India. Remember, Singham will always be there, applauding you. Thank you.
Legislature, executive, and judiciary, the three pillars of democracy, are also the three organs of public service. Corona pandemic brought to forefront the important role played by each of these pillars. In the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, public servants were seen working under life-threatening circumstances, fighting the spread of pandemic, saving lives. Ensuring social protection along with ensuring non-disruption of essential services like health, police, fire, water, electricity, sanitation, etc. Many public servants put their lives and their families' lives at risk in order to continue serving the public throughout the pandemic. Sadly, many have subsequently been infected and an alarming number have lost their lives. During Corona, we saw numerous examples of quick thinking, innovation by officers to counter the destruction caused by the pandemic. For example, in Maharashtra, we saw COVID hospitals established within few weeks. We saw schools, including colleges and universities, rush to online platform to ensure continuity of service. Courts are hearing and judging cases through video conferencing. Many such examples have been seen where public servants have risen to the challenge to ensure service to the nations. These warriors have put back the trust and pride of people into public service. Such stories of unsung heroes who put service before self are inspirations to the young generation. I want people to know about these officers making a change. To conclude, I would like to invite motivated young people to join public service. I would advise them to work hard and sincerely to meet the expectations of people of India. People have high hopes from us, and it is important to live up to that responsibility. Thank you.
For an amazing and remarkable session, especially an inspiration to those of us who aspire to serve our country one way or another. On behalf of TEDx Gateway, I want to thank our sponsors, the JSW Group and the Arun Bongirwar Foundation for their support. TEDx Gateway invites you to pause and recognize the importance of civil servants, the ones who usually go to work when you and I go to bed, and who keep our society safe and ready for us to go on professionally, and who engage with the world on a daily basis. At TEDx Gateway, we recognize the efforts of public servants and the remarkable work they have done. We urge you to take part individually and join our call to action for small steps to make a large impact. As the session comes to an end, we encourage you or anyone interested in public services, if you know a civil servant whose work you believe should be highlighted for the world to see, call us and nominate your public service heroes. We bring you these voices and these stories to every household to inspire the people around you. Thank you for joining us. See you next year.
I commend the Arun Bongirwar Foundation for recognizing the outstanding work in public service and providing a platform in inspiring many young civil servants in this way. It is this tradition strongly set by the former Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, Shri Arun Bongirwar, during his lifetime. Thank you.
I wish to commend Arun Bongirwar Foundation, which has sponsored these excellent civil servants for bettering the lives of our citizens.
सुरक्षा हर पिच पर, ताकत लंबी पारी खेलने की, परफेक्ट फिट, क्वालिटी टेस्ट, मैच से पहले ये सारे चेक्स बहुत जरूरी होते हैं, ठीक वैसे जैसे घर की छत चूज करते समय। तो बस ले आइए JSW कलर ऑन प्लस की छत, जो दे आपके घर को मजबूती और सुरक्षा। JSW कलर ऑन प्लस, सुंदर छत सालों साल।
JSW न्यू स्टील TMT सरिया बेस्ट है।
सरिया दिखता कहाँ है?
ये देखिए बेस्ट क्वालिटी।
चेस्ट गार्ड है, दिखता कहाँ है?
दिखता नहीं तो कुछ भी लगाओगे क्या? ये देना। JSW न्यू स्टील TMT बार, प्योर स्टील, मजबूत घर।
कभी रंगों के बारे में सोचा है? हिंदुस्तान के रंग, लाल, पीला, हरा, नीला। यहाँ त्योहार भी रंगीन होते हैं और टैटू भी। अरे इतने रंग तो इंद्रधनुष में नहीं होते जितने हमारे मिजाज में होते हैं। फिर धीरे धीरे हमने ये रंग बांट लिए, धर्म के रंग, जात के रंग, मिस्टर के रंग, मिसेस के रंग, अपने रंग, पराये रंग। तो चलो मिलकर इस रंगीन चादर को फिर से सिलते हैं। जो तेरा वो मेरा, और जो मेरा वो सबका। इसीलिए पहली बार JSW पेंट्स लाए हैं 1808 शेड्स एक ही प्राइस पर, ताकि हर रंग हो हर किसी का। JSW पेंट्स, थिंक ब्यूटीफुल।
ये दीवारें जानती हैं हर शुरुआत का पता। एक नई सोच के साथ अपने सपने की सुबह। हर गोल के लिए कई चुनौतियों का सामना आसान नहीं था। सालों की मेहनत को एक नाम मिल जाए, इससे बड़ा सपना नहीं था। वादा किया था खुद से, इंडिया इंडिया की गूंज कभी कम नहीं होगी। एक मजबूत नींव पर एक नए कल की शुरुआत जरूर होगी।
जब उम्मीद मिलाए हिम्मत से हाथ, हर सपने को मिले मजबूती का साथ।
आओ बनाए हर सपने को मजबूत JSW सीमेंट के साथ। JSW सीमेंट, द लीडर्स चॉइस।
They must understand very clearly that to be effective in administration, to be able to push developmental schemes, to be able to implement any policies, or to be able to implement schemes like family planning, spreading irrigation, hybrid campaign, etc. You have to be working in consultation, taking politicians, taking elected representatives in confidence.
More importantly, this is an all-women project, with all 280 tribal entrepreneurs in this project being women.
ती आज तहसीलदार, डॉक्टर, कलेक्टर ही स्वप्न बघत आहेत.
If governments and communities can work together, we can save this wonderful gift of nature.